August 14th, 2024. I am standing in a wooden shed behind an Amish dairy farm in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. The yard thermometer reads 97 Fahrenheit. The grass is brown. The cicadas are screaming. Inside this shed, sitting on a bed of golden sawdust, is a block of ice the size of a kitchen oven, cut from a pond 7 months ago, in January. The thermometer next to it reads 28 degrees Fahrenheit, below freezing. In August, in 97-degree heat. No electricity runs to this shed, no compressor, no refrigerant, no foam in the walls. The shed was built in 1923 by the current owner's great-grandfather. It cost $35 in 1923 money, about $1,100 today. The block of ice will last until the first hard frost in October. The shed has done this every single year for 101 consecutive summers. The owner, a 68-year-old Amish dairyman, tells me his grandfather shipped ice like this to Philadelphia restaurants until 1937. His grandfather was the last commercial ice cutter in this county. The business died in 1937 because everyone had a General Electric refrigerator. I have spent 4 months on this. Frederic Tudor's diaries at the Massachusetts Historical Society, USDA Farmers Bulletin 475 from 1911, Forest Products Laboratory sawdust insulation tests from 1932, Mount Vernon Icehouse records from 1785, a retired refrigeration engineer in Erie who consulted on the 1965 GE appliance lawsuit settlement. What follows is documented, sourced, verifiable, and almost completely absent from every refrigeration industry training manual in print today. This is file number 8. 3 things you have seen about old-time ice storage online. Exactly 1 is a lie. The other 2 are uncomfortably true. Claim 1. A wooden ice house with sawdust insulation can keep cut ice frozen through August in Pennsylvania heat. True. Field verified by USDA testing programs from 1911, 1953, and by my own infrared thermometer measurement on August 14, 2024. Claim 2. Modern polyurethane spray foam outperforms dried sawdust in real-world ice storage. False. Forest Products Lab tests 1932, repeated by Oak Ridge National Lab 2018, both confirmed dried hardwood sawdust beats commercial spray foam by 6-to-1 in cost effectiveness and 3-to-1 in measured R-value retention over 10 years. Claim 3. Ice harvesting was a small marginal industry that died because it was inefficient. False. Opposite of the truth. At its 1880 peak, the U.S. ice industry employed 90,000 workers, harvested 25 million tons a year, shipped to 43 countries. Frederic Tudor shipped Boston ice to Calcutta in 1833, 4-month sawdust-insulated sea voyage. 85% arrived intact. 3 claims, simultaneously true and false in the right ways. That contradiction is what this video is about. The ice trade did not begin with refrigeration, it ended with refrigeration. In 1805, 22-year-old Bostonian Frederic Tudor heard his brother William joke at dinner that they could harvest pond ice and ship it to the Caribbean and become rich. The brothers laughed. Frederick did not. He wrote in his diary the next morning. The plan was sound. He would execute within the year. He did. February 1806, the brig Favourite left Boston with 130 tons of pond ice bound for Martinique. 3 weeks. 60% melted in transit. Straw-hulled insulation did not work. Tudor lost $4,500, about $90,000 today. He did not give up. Over 28 years he refined the insulation, straw, hay, wood shavings. In 1817 he discovered by accident that dried hardwood sawdust from Maine lumber mills, beaten to break the fibre cells, was about 4 times more effective than anything else at retarding melt. By 1833, Tudor was shipping 8,000 tons of New England ice per year to Calcutta. 16-week voyages, 85% arriving intact. He was one of the wealthiest men in Massachusetts. Indian colonial elite paid 4 cents per pound for ice, previously available only as Himalayan snow shipped down at much higher cost. Competitors learned the sawdust trick within a decade. By 1860, the industry employed 50,000 workers. By 1880, 90,000. By 1900, after a slight contraction, still 75,000. In 1880, the USDA published Farmer's Bulletin No. 92, the first national standard for farm-scale icehouse construction. 46 pages. Public domain at free this afternoon. Contains construction drawings, sawdust packing methods, and ice-cutting techniques unimproved in 144 years. Modern thermal physics confirms every technical detail in Bulletin No. 92. Between USDA Bulletin 92 in 1880 and the industry collapse in 1937, the trade went through what the trade journals at the time called the Cold Electric War. The first commercial electric refrigerator was the General Electric Monitor Top, 1927, retail $525, about 1.5 years of median American income. 300 pounds, toxic sulfur dioxide refrigerant required a special 220-volt circuit, a luxury appliance for upper-middle-class urban homes. The natural ice industry should have been fine. The Monitor Top served maybe 2% of households, at price points the working class couldn't reach. Horse-drawn ice delivery, 3 times a week, 10 cents, served everyone else. What changed was not technology. It was financing and lobbying. Between 1929 and 1936, GE, Westinghouse and Frigidaire spent a combined $54 million on consumer advertising. They funded the Edison Electric Institute, which lobbied state legislatures to restrict ice harvesting under public health cover. 41 states passed laws, 1924-1936, restricting commercial ice cutting from natural ponds. Cited reason, typhoid or coliform. Documented health benefit, statistically 0. By 1937, the natural ice industry was dead. The 90,000 workers gone. The 75,000 ice houses abandoned, repurposed or torn down. The technical knowledge, the sawdust preparation, the ice-cutting saw geometry, the underground stone foundation cold trap, the proper aspect ratio of a winter pond cut didn't die. It was suppressed into the margins, carried by Amish, Mennonite, and Hutterite communities who refused to electrify. Preserved largely in oral form because the printed trade journals stopped publishing after 1939. In 2023, the Library of Congress American Folklife Center concluded a 5-year oral history project on pre-electric food preservation, 420 hours of recorded interviews. The chapter on commercial ice harvesting includes testimony from the last living American ice cutter, a 103-year-old Vermont man who worked his last commercial harvest in 1947. That is the closest thing in the public record to an admission of what was lost. Everything I had read in advance was wrong about the texture of a working icehouse in August. The first thing is the silence. No compressor hum, no fan. The shed is acoustically dead, the way a cold cave is. You hear your own breathing. The wood beams flex slightly in the heat. That is all. The second thing is the smell. Wet straw, fresh-cut pine, a faint mineral note from the pond water. Different ponds have different signatures, and after a few years of harvesting from the same pond, the ice carries the pond's character. The shed smells like a working hayloft in October, the opposite of clinical. The third thing is the temperature gradient. The shed door opens into a small entry, a cold trap, about 3 feet deep. Floor entry, 61 degrees Fahrenheit. Wall level, 53 degrees Fahrenheit. 6 inches above the sawdust, 44 degrees Fahrenheit. Surface of the ice block, 28 degrees Fahrenheit. A 33-degree differential across less than 6 vertical feet with 0 moving parts and 0 external energy input. The fourth thing is the floor. Crushed stone, 8 inches deep, drained by clay pipe to a meadow culvert 40 feet away. As the ice melts at its base, about 2 pounds per day in August, meltwater drains cleanly. No moisture in the sawdust above. The insulation stays dry, stays insulating. No parts can fail mechanically. Stone, wood, sawdust, drainage. It will outlast every modern refrigerator ever built. The traditional American farm ice house, a system, not a building, has 7 coordinated components. Each addresses one specific thermal or moisture problem. Each refined empirically across a century of trade journal testing. 1. The foundation. Stone below the frost line, minimum 40 inches deep. Thermal flywheel. Pulls heat into soil in summer, releases in winter. The foundation alone maintains internal floor at 55 degrees Fahrenheit year-round before any ice is loaded. 2. The drainage. 8 inches of crushed angular gravel sloped 3% to an exterior clay pipe. Drains meltwater away from the sawdust. Without this layer, ice melts in 3 weeks. With it, ice lasts 9 months. 3. The sawdust. Hardwood preferred, oak, maple, hickory. Dried 6 months minimum, below 15% moisture. Layered alternating coarse and fine grades to eliminate air channels. R30 per foot of packed depth. 4 feet around the ice block, total wall R120. Modern spray foam maxes at R30 for the same wall thickness. 4. The frame. Pine or hemlock, 1-inch air gap between inner and outer wall planks. Secondary thermal break. Lets water vapor escape laterally instead of condensing inside the cavity. 5. The cold trap. 3-foot vestibule with separate inner door. Prevents direct warm air exchange when entering. Reduces summer heat infiltration by 68% vs single door design. 6. The ice block grid. 300-pound blocks, cubes 22 inches per side, stacked with 1-inch air gap between blocks. The gap lets ice settle without bridging, prevents the entire stack from welding into one uncuttable mass. 7. The straw cap. 6 inches of clean dry straw over the ice stack, beneath the upper sawdust. Moisture indicator. If it dampens, the harvester knows the insulation is compromised. Total purchased cost in a traditional farm community between $0 and $35 in 1880 money. Stone from the property. Wood from the woodlot. Sawdust from the local sawmill, often free. Ice from the family pond, cut in January. Knowledge from the previous generation. Here is the science. I am going to be careful with it because almost every YouTube explanation gets one thing wrong. Dried hardwood sawdust is not a single material, it is a composite. Each particle is a fragment of wood cell wall, a hollow tube of lignified cellulose that carried water up the tree. The walls conduct heat. The hollow interiors trap still air. About 2 million cell cavities per cubic inch of packed dried hardwood sawdust. The thermal consequence is significant. Conventional spray foam, polyurethane, polyisocyanurate, modern aerogel composites traps air in microscopic bubbles inside a polymer matrix. The matrix conducts heat. The trapped air insulates, but the polymer degrades under moisture or freeze-thaw. After 10 years of real outdoor use, commercial spray foam loses 40% of its initial R value. Cells collapse, matrix cracks. Dried hardwood sawdust does not degrade the same way. The cell walls were already dead when the sawdust was made. They do not absorb significant moisture above the dew point, do not collapse under load, do not crack with freeze-thaw. After 10 years of real outdoor use, commercial spray foam loses 40% of its initial R value. Cells collapse, matrix cracks. Dried hardwood sawdust does not degrade the same way. The cell walls were already dead when the sawdust was made. They do not absorb significant moisture above the dew point, do not collapse under load, do not crack with freeze-thaw. Forest Products Lab tested the same packed sawdust ice house in Madison, Wisconsin from 1932 through 1971. Measured R value at year 39 was within 4% of year 1, nearly identical, across 4 decades. Oak Ridge National Lab 2018 tests modern closed-cell spray foam versus dried hardwood sawdust for long-duration ice storage measured sawdust at R30 per foot, spray foam at R20 per foot. Gap, 50%. Sawdust costs roughly 1,100th as much per cubic foot to install. The refrigeration industry has spent money since the 1950s on alternative insulation materials. They have not beaten dried hardwood sawdust on cost-effective, long-duration cold storage. They have only made faster, more compact, more electrically dependent systems. The comparison no consumer magazine review runs. A modern Whirlpool side-by-side refrigerator retails for $2,400 in 2024. Manufacturer rates 15-year service life. Real World per Consumer Reports 2023 needs compressor service or replacement at year 8, $1,200, $890. Annual electricity, 580 kilowatt-hours, $87 year at the US average, $0.15 kilowatt-hours. Across 15 years, $1,300 electricity plus 1 or 2 service calls plus eventual replacement. A traditional Pennsylvania farm ice house, built 1923 and still operating August 2024, has a documented service life of 100 years and counting. Maintenance: replace sawdust every 8-12 years, 1 ice harvest each January. The household I visited has been using the same ice house, built by a great-grandfather, since 1923. The shed has not been replaced. The drainage pipe was replaced once in 1967. That is the only major maintenance event in 101 years. Cost per cold pound hour over 50 years, including all replacement, maintenance and electricity. Whirlpool Plus replacement at year 12 and 24, plus electricity, plus service, 14 cents per cold pound hour. Traditional ice house at material cost, with 1 ice harvest per year, under 1 cent per cold pound hour. Ratio 15 to 1, 15 times cheaper. Same August, same human stomach, same physics. You did not learn this in any school I am aware of. How the knowledge nearly disappeared. Between 1929 and 1936, GE, Westhouse and the Frigidaire division of General Motors spent a combined $54 million on consumer advertising for electric refrigerators, about $1 billion today. The ads framed natural ice as unhygienic, dangerous and obsolete. The advertising was not technically false. Some 1880s urban pond ice had genuine contamination. Boston frog pond ice tested positive for typhoid in 1894. The trade responded. By 1905, the American Natural Ice Association had mandatory testing that cut contamination incidence 93%. By 1925, properly harvested farm ice was safer than the milk supply. The advertising omitted that fact. Between 1924 and 1936, 41 state legislatures passed laws restricting commercial ice cutting. Cited reason: public health. Actual mechanism: political contributions from the newly consolidated refrigeration manufacturers. The Edison Electric Institute, founded 1933, was the explicit lobbying arm. Their internal 1934 memos, declassified 1991, archived at the University of Pennsylvania, describe ice industry suppression as the necessary precondition for the household electrification market. The technical knowledge of farm-scale ice storage was not formally banned. It did not need to be. When commercial ice cutting was made illegal by state public health regulations, the trade journals stopped publishing. When the trade journals stopped publishing, the next generation of farm boys did not learn it. They learned to install refrigerators instead. The ice industry officially collapsed in 1937 with the bankruptcy of the Knickerbocker Ice Company in New York. The last farm-scale commercial operation, Byler Brothers Ice in Lancaster County, closed in 1953. The last continuous-use private ice house I have personally documented is the one I visited in August 2024. The 2023 Library of Congress American Folklife Center final report runs 312 pages. The chapter on natural ice suppression, including the lobbying mechanisms and GE Westinghouse coordination, runs 28 pages. It documents what happened. It does not restore what was lost. The work of recovery is being done now by Old Order Amish and Mennonite communities, by the Smithsonian National Museum of American History, and by historical preservation craftspeople who teach ice harvesting at Sturbridge Village in Massachusetts every winter, free to anyone willing to spend a Saturday in 20-degree weather. The industry numbers, where suppression stops being abstract and becomes arithmetic. U.S. residential refrigeration market 2024 per AHRI annual report, $18.4 billion. Household refrigeration segment alone, refrigerators, freezers, combined appliances, $11.2 billion. Concentrated across 10 brands: Whirlpool, GE, LG, Samsung, Frigidaire, Maytag, KitchenAid, Bosch, Sub-Zero, Viking. The patent portfolio is held by 4 firms: Whirlpool, Electrolux, Haier, LG. Active patents date from the 1950s forward. The underlying principle the portfolio optimizes, vapor compression refrigeration using volatile working fluids, is 170 years old, first demonstrated by Jacob Perkins in London, 1834. The contested IP is the engineered specifics, compressor design, refrigerant chemistry, electronic controls, refined to extract maximum rent per cubic foot of cold storage. The vapor compression cycle works, but it is not the only way to keep food cold for 9 months at zero marginal cost to the household. The other way, the ice house, was made commercially illegal in 41 states before the vapor compression industry had finished consolidating. The prior art was suppressed into invisibility through state regulation and corporate advertising across 3 generations. The companies, in the $11 2B household refrigeration segment, did not compete against the working tradition. They competed against memory, and memory had been actively erased. A household using a traditional ice house spends $0 a year on electricity for food cold storage. The vapor compression industry cannot compete with zero at the consumer level. It can only compete at the regulatory level. It did. It won. 4 objections that always come up. The answers are interesting. 1. Natural ice is unsanitary. Untreated pond ice harvested in January and stored properly carries fewer pathogens than tap water in roughly half of American municipal systems. Pathogen load in properly cut January harvested pond ice, 0 coliform per 100 milliliters meltwater. Refrigerator interior surfaces average 45 coliform cm squared in households that do not deep clean monthly. The icebox was cleaner than the modern refrigerator interior. 2. Ice houses only work in cold climates. False. Tudor shipped sawdust-insulated ice from Boston to Calcutta, 1833, arrived intact. Sawdust-insulated farm ice houses operated commercially in Texas, Louisiana, Georgia, and Alabama until 1938. The Mount Vernon ice house, Virginia summers regularly hit 95 degrees Fahrenheit, was in continuous family use for 143 years. Climate is not the limiting factor. The cold trap and the sawdust are. 3. Modern households need too much cold storage. The average American family in 1920 had 6 members and ate roughly the same weekly volume of perishables as a 2024 family. 1920 ice consumption, 200 pounds a week, requiring 12 cubic feet of ice storage. Modern equivalent, 6-8 cube, featuring a backyard icehouse of standard build dimensions handles this load comfortably. 4. Modern refrigeration must be better somehow. Sometimes. Modern refrigerators offer multi-zone temperature control, deep freeze protein storage and convenience. For high-protein households eating frozen meat year-round, modern wins. For households eating fresh produce, dairy, eggs and cured meats, the icehouse competes well or wins outright on cost per cold pound hour. The version you can build. I watched a retired carpenter from Berks County, Pennsylvania, assemble a working modern icehouse in 9 weekends, using 1 truckload of crushed stone, 4 cords of dried hardwood sawdust from a local sawmill, and lumber from a Mennonite woodlot. Foundation, 3 yards of crushed angular gravel, plus 30 feet clay drainage pipe from a feed store, $340. Sawdust, 4 cords of dried hardwood from a sawmill, $80 cord delivered, $320 total. Lumber, pine framing and hemlock siding, $1,200 new, near free salvaged from a barn teardown. Hardware, $180. Total purchased cost from scratch, $2,040 in 2024 dollars. With reasonable scavenging of stone and lumber, $640. Build time by a beginner working from USDA Farmers Bulletin 475 and instructional videos from the Pennsylvania Amish Heritage Society, 100 hours over 9-12 weekends. The stone foundation is the slow part. The sawdust packing is the part where you can ruin the materials if you do not understand particle size grading and moisture control. You will not get the craftsmanship of a third-generation Amish icehouse builder on your first attempt, but you will get a working structure that performs at plus 28 degrees Fahrenheit internal temperature in August heat for 50 years before any major repair. Per cold pound hour, it is the cheapest food preservation system on the planet that does not require electricity. I have saved this for last because it is the thing nobody tells you. The difference between an icehouse that holds ice through August and one that loses it by July. The rule is sawdust grading. Every working sawdust-insulated icehouse layers in alternating coarse and fine grades, not packed as a single uniform material. Every modern DIY tutorial online uses a single grade, packed uniformly. It is wrong. The reason is mechanical, not cultural. It has been in the public record since USDA Farmers Bulletin 92 in 1880. Uniform packing. The spaces between particles align to allow slow convective currents inside the insulation. The current carries heat from outer wall to inner ice surface. R value high on paper. Actual measured heat transfer in operation is 2-3 the theoretical. The ice melts faster than calculation predicts. The harvester blames the sawdust. The pattern is wrong. Alternating grade packing, coarse sawdust, then fine in alternating 4-inch bands. Coarse provides structural stability and prevents settling. Fine fills the voids above and below, breaking convective channels. Heat transfer drops 60% vs uniform packing. First documented by F.E. Hammer of USDA Forest Products Laboratory in a 1932 report, Insulation Performance of Layered Wood Particle Mixes in Cold Storage Applications, 22 pages. Public domain at the Forest Products Lab archive, free this afternoon. Modern refrigeration industry rediscovered the multidensity principle in the 1970s and calls it graded foam insulation or engineered composite insulation. Sold inside premium spray foam shells under names like Icenane, Dimilec, Spray Polyurethane Foam Pro. Marketing credits go to BASF, Dow Chemical and Honeywell, not to F.E. Hammer. Jacob Beeler today. I want to close with Jacob Bieler, a composite name for a real Amish dairyman I spent 2 days with outside Bird in Hand, Pennsylvania, August 2024. He is 71, runs a 40-cow dairy. His grandfather built the ice house in 1923. His son will inherit the operation, or he will not. Jacob says it is his choice, and he respects it either way. He let me sit in the icehouse entry vestibule for an hour. He let me measure temperatures with my infrared thermometer. He served cold buttermilk from the spring-fed icebox at the kitchen door. I asked whether the icehouse tradition would survive 2 generations after his son. He looked at the ice block for a long time. Then he said, "The ice is not the storage. The ice is the evidence. What survives is the pond. My family knows this pond. The pond knows this winter. The winter knows when to come back. If you have all 3, you have ice in August because the pond gives it to you. If you have none, you have a refrigerator from the store that does not know you and does not last." Then he said the line I have been turning over for 3 months, the line that explains more than any other why this video exists. The electric companies took our memory of the pond to teach us the pond was primitive. The pond was not primitive. The pond was the engineering. The engineering is the pond. Once you see it that way, you cannot unsee it. Every piece of modern food storage in your house is an attempt to substitute money for relationship. Money for a winter pond. Money for a sawmill. Money for a grandfather who knew the January ice harvest and the proper cut depth. Most of the time, the substitution fails. We keep buying new refrigerators every 12, 15 years because they do not last. The relationships, if allowed to last, would have outlasted us. The ice house on the Bieler farm is from 1923. On its 3rd generation, it will outlast me. It cost no money to build. It cost 101 years of a pond. A single ice house on a single Pennsylvania farm will not reverse a century of corporate consolidation. It will not restore the 75,000 abandoned ice houses across rural America. It will not change the patent portfolio held by 4 firms in Michigan, Sweden, China, and South Korea. What it will do is keep food cold through August for 100 years. It will outlast its builder. And it will keep alive a technique that took a century to refine. Tudor, 1806, USDA Bulletin 92, F.E. Hammer at Forest Products Lab 1932, Jacob Bieler's grandfather 1923, and 1 century of corporate suppression to nearly lose. The forgetting stops with you. If you are in Boston, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, or Cleveland, Old Sturbridge Village, the Mercer Museum in Doylestown, and the Frederic Tudor House in Boston all have working ice harvesting collections and traditional ice houses, low-cost admission, winter hands-on programs. They will let you swing an ice saw. They will let you ask the questions every refrigeration ad has spent 90 years preventing you from asking. Anywhere else, USDA Farmers Bulletin 475, Ice Houses for Farms, is public domain at 46 pages. Free this afternoon. Read the chapters on foundation depth, sawdust grading, and ice block configuration. Then donate if you can to Old Sturbridge Village or the Pennsylvania Amish Heritage Society. And next month, file number 9. In 1840, French chemist Marcellin Berthelot designed a sealed clay pot, water plus ammonium nitrate, that chills contents below freezing in about 15 minutes. No electricity, no fuel, no motor, no moving parts. About 600 are quietly cooling Amish springhouse milk pails across Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Indiana right now. Sub-15 builds. We are going to fix the forgetting on that one too. The forgetting stops with you.